Hey friends, we are so happy that you have joined us live for After 83 Weeks. If you listen to this week's 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff and you have some follow-up questions about Randy Savage and WCW 1996 to 1997, you have come to the exact right place. We are going to get all your questions answered and hang out a little bit with our favorite podcaster of all time and WWE Hall of Famer, Eric Bischoff. And hey, there he is. Hello,
Hey,
sir.
everybody, Guido here. How are you? How are you doing tonight? I hope you all are having a good time.
I
You're
love how
always
quick
so
the three of us
self-dressed for us.
caught this. We were like, yep.
Everybody's doing this immediately. Like, what the fuck?
Hey, manja.
Pizza pie. All right. Well, hey, what a way to kick it off. We also have my friends Adam Woods, George Hermoza, and Steve Kaufmann here tonight. Thanks for coming to hang out, guys.
Hey, thank you for having us. We got Italian references on Cinco de Mayo. Let's get this show on the road. I'm just saying.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I'm just here because at some point I want to hear Christy Olson do a Randy Savage impression. Oh yeah, dig it.
Come on.
You know, it's so funny you bring that up because I thought about a specific question where I may have to do that. And I thought, no, there's got to be a way that I can get out of that. It's two cheese ball. But you know what? I do want to hear the impressions of our live viewers tonight. Whatever they can do to type, whatever you can do to get across some of that Macho Man energy, give us the vibes. Do it in your comments tonight. You can type your questions right there in the live chat. And we always love some super chats as well. They're doing it already. I want to say hi to Josh Eternal, and Coach Rosie. Nick Mack is here. And Nicholas. He could not wait for this tonight. I'm with you, Nick. I've been sitting here for a while, and he wanted us to pass this message along to you right away, Eric. We're going to kick it off this way. He says, I'm early. Can't wait for tonight. I look forward to this every Thursday. Please tell Eric I said hello from Florida. I'm a big fan of his. So,
Well, hello, Nicholas. I hope you have a good evening, and we love having you here. Appreciate that, man.
we do, Florida aside, hope you're doing okay down there. But as I mentioned earlier, you guys talked all about Randy Savage's 96 to 97 this week on the show. He is one of my favorite guys of all time, Eric. And what I just couldn't help but keep thinking as we were listening to, the huge impact he's had in the past is what Randy Savage would have to say about the state of pro wrestling right now. And this is where I was going to make sure that I carefully avoided an impression, Eric. But let's say Macho Man came down from heaven today in all of his bright colored fringe glory. And he said to you, brother, I haven't really been keeping an eye on what's going on down here. What is the state of pro wrestling?
Do the impression. We want to hear the impression.
Yes.
Guys.
Come on.
Cinco de Mayo. I should have had a margarita. Okay. I have to channel it first. I'm in hot pink and orange. Brother, it's pretty cool up there. You know, I haven't been turning an eye to what's going on down here in the ring, down here in the real world. Easy E. How's it going down there?
Brava.
Oh, I think Randy would have an opinion, but you know what? I was thinking about this the other day in the context of I didn't bring this up on the show, and I wished I would have, actually. So thank you for asking that question, Chrissy. One of the cool things about Randy, and again, thought about this after, the podcast, is that Randy is one of those guys who came up early in the territory system, right? I mean, his dad was old school, hardcore, traditional territory, kayfabe, all that good stuff, right? Randy came up, the better part of his career, especially the formative parts of his career, in that culture that professional wrestling was in the late 70s, early 80s. And again, I'm sure his dad had a lot of influence in the way Randy thought about the business in terms of the traditional way that guys like, Randy's dad and people of Randy's era did. But Randy was unique, not alone either, but unique in the sense that he adapted. And it's hard for any of us, I think, to imagine what this would have been like. But can you imagine, having the influence of a father like Randy did, who grew up in the business and was very, strict about kayfabe and what the wrestling business should be and shouldn't be and all that stuff. And then being Randy and coming up through the territory system and being exposed to that culture and philosophy and way of thinking. And then going to WWE, where it was complete three-ring circus. All the things that you learned from your father and in the early parts of your career went straight out the window. It's showbiz, baby. And I remember, back in, the late 70s when I first broke into wrestling, and WWE, nationwide on cable was still relatively new back then. Now, that didn't happen until the early 80s. So it'd only been around for a little while, and Vern Gagne predicted, no, it's never going to work. Vince McMahon's too much about the showbiz. It's a three-ring circus. Wrestling fans want wrestling. Well, cut to today's WWE conference call. They made $322 million in profit last quarter. Not for a lifetime, the last quarter. So things changed a lot for Randy early on in his career, but he transitioned really well. He transitioned really well in WCW. The NWO, I know, we're tired of talking about it. I'm tired of talking about it in a way, but it was such a huge paradigm shift, if you will. God, I have to do that. I don't know why I have to do that. But Randy transitioned easily into that. He wasn't afraid of it. And to answer your question, Christy, I think Randy would look at the style of wrestling, which has obviously gotten much, much more athletic, much less story-driven, much more athletic and presentation-driven. And I think Randy would be cool with it because Randy, I think whether he thought about it or not, he conducted himself in a way that led me to believe, at least, that you got to evolve with everything, whether it's music or wrestling or television or sitcoms or stand-up comedy or fashion or music or anything else. You have to evolve with it or you die. And I think Randy just instinctively adapted.
And I think he did it better than most, right? When you look at like Lenny Bruce's comedy, and it was controversial for the time, it doesn't really, it's tame by today's standards. Randy holds up, especially him being not the biggest guy, right? And there's a lot of not big guys in today's pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I think his work still stands.
Oh, it definitely does. His psychology does. And I think one of the reasons his work still holds up today is because of the amount of effort and time he put into it. But as much as Randy adapted, to WWF early on in the early 80s, to throughout the transition of WWF and then into WCW, the Nitro and NWO and all of it, Randy adapted to it very well. But one thing that remained consistent with Randy, two things, was his work ethic and his psychology. His psychology was second to none. He had great psychology. He knew how to tell a story in the ring, and he was enough of a showman where he could get the audience involved emotionally and connect with him. That's where the showbiz part came in. And a lot of the showbiz is psychology. It's reading a room if you're a stand-up comic, or even a rock band playing a live concert. You got to read the room there too, or a politician, or if you're an executive speaking to a large group of your peers or employees, or you're giving a sales presentation, whatever it is you're doing, the better you are at reading the room and playing to that room because you can read it properly, the more successful you're going to be in any walk of life. And in wrestling, I think that translates into ring persona and charisma. And Randy had it in abundance and carried that through regardless of the era or the transition that the industry was in.
Yeah, I was so young at his height that, I wouldn't have known that's what it was. And now you say it's that charisma that just made us all love him.
And I wish we could figure out how to make that shit, right? We could figure out a way to put that in a little blue pill, and you take 2 of those a day with a glass of water, and in 6 weeks you're going to have charisma. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Sign me up.
I know some people I would gift that shit to. I really would. Send the box of it over to Tony Khan. Dude, if you're gonna put yourself on TV every week, take 2 of these every day for 6 weeks. Call me when you're done.
You were talking about the you were talking about NWO earlier. Didymus wants to know.
Why did I do that? Why did I go there? I guess you know why I do it, and I like Tony Khan. I really do like Tony Khan. He is a good dude, and I want his company to be successful. But the fucking geeks that are so passionate about his show that just light up my social media, I love tweaking them. I love just poking them every time I can. It makes me laugh.
Let's see if we can poke anyone with this.
Positively about AEW, they're not the bots, so let's poke them, Steve.
Let's see if we can poke them positively or negatively about Didymus's question, which is: would it have worked for Randy Savage to join the NWO as the 4th member after Hogan and not be in the tag match?
Oh, I think it could have worked. Sure. I don't think it worked as well. I don't think it would have worked as well as, at least initially, having Randy on the opposite side of the NWO. We got a fair amount of story out of that, and positioning, and alignment of key members of WCW. So could it have worked? Sure. Do I think it maybe would have worked as well? I don't know for sure, but I don't think so.
Well, we do have a comment from Randy himself, who says that he cannot come down from heaven currently. Andre still has him in an eternal chokehold. And Randy guesses he's still mad about that whole baby oil thing.
Keep at it, brother. You're going to kick out and get your comeback. You will.
Yeah,
You may do the job, but you'll get a kick out and a comeback before you do.
Oh yeah.
Andre's already letting you use the keyboard. You're in good shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Randy Savage, I wanted to ask you something that I don't think has ever really been asked by Conrad or any of the other interviews regarding Randy Savage. Were you a fan of Slim Jims? Did you enjoy Slim Jims?
I actually was and still am. I love them. When I first came across Slim Jims, I was about 8 years old, and there was a little corner store about 6 blocks from my house. And I used to go in there. They had this candy. It was called Blackjack Candy. And it looked like Neapolitan ice cream. Like they had it was 3 colors. It was black, white, and pink, I think. And the black was a licorice flavor. The white was supposedly a vanilla flavor. I don't know what the pink was. Maybe strawberry. But I loved them. And they were right up in front by the cash register. And they're always in a big bowl. And they were little like square things, you just pick out a handful of them, and they were like 2 for a penny or some shit. But they were right next to the Slim Jim box. And I've always loved spicy food. So when I was a kid, they were a dime. They were a dime back then. What are they now? About $4.80 for a stick?
Pretty much.
But yeah, I literally can remember Slim Jims that far back. And I still love them now, but now I know what's in them. So I only eat like one every 2 years. Because I want them to fully digest before I eat another one. And knowing what's in them, it probably takes about a good 2 years.
How perfect was that partnership, though, between Macho Man and Slim Jim? Because I don't know if you other guys remember who the original spokesperson for Slim Jim was. Do you guys know?
No.
Adam?
No.
Steve?
No.
No idea?
Do tell.
The Ultimate Warrior!
Are you serious?
And not only that, the guy that replaced Randy Savage before Slim Jim was like, yeah, we're going to follow Randy. Do you guys remember who replaced Randy Savage?
No.
No.
Big Daddy Cool. Back when he was Diesel.
Wow.
Look it up. You can still find the commercials on the YouTube, but it was that much. It was either Warrior or Nash were that bad, or maybe Savage was that good where they were like, you know what, we need Savage forever and ever. I think maybe even a few years ago I saw, at 7-Eleven, they still had Macho Man Randy Savage boxes on the Slim Jim.
Oh, they still do now.
Yeah.
Well, Lori and I do road trips, and inevitably, we're in the middle of South Dakota or North Dakota or somewhere on our way back to Minnesota, and we'll stop and get, gas and a bite to eat. And there's not much to eat. Well, there's a lot to eat, but none of it you really should or want to in a gas station. but they always have Slim Jims. And I think as recently as last summer on our last road trip, I saw them.
Yeah. Which one last Slim Jim question? What do you think of Wendy Williams's interpretation where she lights it up with a zip lighter and then throws some hot sauce on it? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen that
haven't
one.
seen it.
Oh yeah, that's her gimmick. Like at least for the first couple of years of her TV show, where she taught people how to light up a Slim Jim and throw some
Oh,
Tabasco.
so it's not a commercial. It's her thing on her show.
No, that's literally what she has as a snack in between tapings.
Never
And she
heard
taught
of
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Wendy Williams has not been on any of my to watch lists. So
Oh, shucks.
Was that back when she was
Yeah.
doing the radio thing?
No, this is the first season of her show,
Oh,
the
wow.
syndicated.
Well, not the
Does
most
she
physically
does
or
she still
mentally
have a
healthy
show?
person.
Does she
It-
still
Oh,
have a show?
that's a day-to-day thing, Eric. She's
Yeah.
she's going to be replaced next year, but she's still trying to make it there on a day-to-day basis.
Well, if she's smoking Slim Jim, she should just be happy she's alive.
Yeah, barely.
10 points.
Well, speaking of a big old slab of meat, let's take a moment to wish Coach Rosie's son a very happy birthday, turning 18 tonight. And instead of a strip club, I guess Coach Rosie is taking him to Ruth Chris.
Strip clubs are 21, Chrissy.
Oh,
No, I went on my
I
18th
wouldn't
birthday.
know.
It varies by state.
It varies by state,
What-
and
what-
and,
what-
and
what-
whether or
what-
not
what-
they
what-
serve
Right? Who
alcohol.
wants that?
And whether or not they serve alcohol. But listen, Ethan, I'm happy birthday, Ethan. And if I had the choice of going to an adult entertainment establishment or Ruth Chris, I would be going to Ruth Chris. You'll have a great meal. You walk out completely satisfied, and you won't have anything to feel guilty about.
I don't know, man. I felt that complete way after my first strip club visit, so I was completely satisfied after that one. So, throwing it out there.
Love it.
We're
And
just
I'm
gonna-
sorry,
we're just
Coach
gonna
Rosie,
leave it
for
alone.
making your birthday shout out dirty.
We could have a
Yeah.
hell of a show on this topic.
On
Yeah.
my 18th birthday,
There you go.
it was on a Monday. I went right after I walked. No, the 15th was I don't know. Yeah, I think Monday. Yeah, it was on Monday at Raw.
You want to hear about my 18th birthday?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know where I spent it? Christy may know where this place is. I spent it in Hudson, Wisconsin. Do you know why I went to Hudson, Wisconsin
No.
on my birthday? It's because in 1972 or 73, I think, whatever it was, Wisconsin changed the law from 21 to 18 before Minnesota did. Uh-huh.
I've heard about this period of time. Yes.
I think that was in 1973, if I'm not mistaken. And Minnesota changed shortly thereafter. But I had to buy my first legal beer. I was so excited because I had purchased beer before, but not the way I should have. And but I want to just like flip down my driver's license, say, dude, I am 18 effing years old and I want my beer legally. Well, I had to drive to Hudson, Wisconsin to do it. So I did. And then about a week later, get this, I think it was a week later on June 1st, Minnesota changed their law. Now, I didn't get out of school. I went to Minnetonka High School. Oh, I know Coach Rosie's trying to get me in a Minnetonka High School Hall of Fame, so this might blow it for me, but whatever. I don't think so. I think they'll forgive and forget at this point. But Minnesota changed the law on June 1st, 1973. So like the week after, I was still in school. School didn't get out till like June 4th or 7th or some shit. So we were still technically senior year in high school. Who's really going to class? But technically we were still in school, and we were kind of all hanging out together because we knew we were graduating. There's a couple days of school left. And then on June 1st, they changed the law, and then we all went to a little bar across the street called 10 Penny 2. And it was just a block away or 2 blocks away from the high school. We all, for lunch, we all went to 10 Penny 2, drank beer, and came back to school legally. It was awesome. There's my 18th. There's my 18th birthday week.
You didn't buy the scratch off or the lottery
deprived.
ticket.
No, the lottery tickets weren't around back then. That was before lottery tickets.
Oh man, how old are you?
Fucking old, dude. I'll be 67 at the end of this month.
Whew.
Wow.
So that's what the big Vegas trip is for.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna make it though. Lori's uncle passed away yesterday, actually, and she was very, very, very close to him. He was more like a father to her than anything. And he passed away, and we've got a funeral to attend to, so don't think we're gonna make the Vegas trip.
Oh,
Uh,
well, our condolences to Lori
condolences.
and her family.
Thank you. I'll
That
pass
also
them
makes
on.
me, yes, thank you. That also makes me realize that pretty sure Adam Woods said at the top of the show that he has bronchitis, and we totally no-sold it. Didn't give him a get well, didn't give him a sorry or ask for an update. So hope you're okay, Adam. But
I'm
whatever.
I'm kicking something. I'm kicking it with you guys. That's for
You
sure.
sound great. You sound healthy and sound great.
Then what did I sound like before?
Same as you do now. Your voice is actually a little higher right now.
Okay.
Maybe
might
that's
be hot.
Puberty
Meds.
craps. What did
Yeah.
I sound like before?
10 points. 10 points.
Well, it is also Cinco de Mayo today. And
Mayo?
Ibzan wants to know, who is your favorite wrestler of Mexican descent or person in the business?
I read decent. I was like, who's your decent Mexican person?
Well, that's what I read, because it doesn't say of Mexican descent. It says, with Cinco de Mayo today, who is your favorite Mexican decent person in the business?
I think there's an S in descent, but we're
I
good.
don't know. I like decent better.
It's okay, Ibzan.
No, I get the question. Who's my favorite? Who's my favorite now? Conan. Who was my favorite then?
Conan.
No, it wasn't Conan then.
We've heard.
No, not at all. I would say Eddie, even though Eddie and I bumped heads a lot. When we weren't bumping heads, we were pretty tight.
I like it.
There's
I
a
love
lot of
it.
chatter. There's a lot of chatter in our chat, funny enough, about your shirt. People want to know who Guido is, where you got this shirt. You told a bit of the story to us before we went on air.
I bought it there was a Lucky Store, probably still is. I haven't been to the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica in some time, but it must not have been 20 years ago. It must have been, I don't know, less than that. Let's say 15 years ago. I had an apartment right just 2 blocks away from the 3rd Street Promenade. And I would go there and shop a lot because I was there like 3 or 4 days out of the week. Then I'd fly home to Scottsdale for a couple of days. I'd fly back because my office was in Burbank at the time. So I would, whenever I had to buy shit, I would just go down and shop on 3rd Street Promenade. This is before it was like all malls, and there were a lot of individual stores, family-owned stores there too. Really cool places. It was a really cool vintage shop back then. A lot of really cool stuff. But anyway, I bought it at a Lucky store, Lucky Jeans store, and then right off the rack. Is this Phillips 66? I think is that what this is?
So it says
77?
69.
No, it's just Lucky. It's Lucky 69. Imagine that.
Lucky indeed.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty casual. This was at the height of your reality TV production career, right? I pictured you in a suit, like at the head of a boardroom, but you're.
Oh no, I never got dressed up ever. That's a cool thing about working in LA, especially if you're a producer, is you just show up with whatever works. You don't have to dress up.
They're like, oh, he's a creative type. We expect it.
Yeah, no, it's LA. Not too many people wear a suit in LA anyway, unless you're a banker, an attorney, and even then, if you're in the entertainment business and you're an attorney, you don't wear a suit very often, unless you're in court or something.
That's true.
This is true.
Yeah.
True that. Let's get to a super chat from Trigga Cheese. He says DDP said to ask you about the frogs on the road story. It's a good one.
No, it's not so much of a good one. It was a weird one. It was like I was in a freaking movie. DDP and I were driving back from a show. I don't know where we were, somewhere in Alabama. I can't remember which town it was, but it was in the summertime. And by the time, we got done with the show and we're driving back to Atlanta, and it was pouring down rain. It was just hot, rainy, and nobody else on the road. And all of a sudden it stopped raining, and these frogs, like thousands of frogs. It looked like something out of a movie. All of a sudden, they're hopping onto the road, and it's like, yeah, you don't want to run over a bunch of frogs, right? It was just weird. It was the weirdest thing. I've never seen so many frogs, and we didn't want to kill them, but we had to get home. So, frog legs for everybody.
Wow. That wasn't the way that I thought this was going. I thought it was like psychedelic toads, and it went all fear and loathing.
No.
Oh,
Nope.
man.
I'm not licking a
CBD,
toad.
right?
I am not licking a toad for any kind of buzz.
There you go.
Supposed to
Bringing it
heal
back
years
to-
of trauma.
Bringing it back to Savage, Ibzan Arroyo wants to know any truth that Randy wanted to show up for Survivor Series 1996. According to Bruce Pritchard on the Timeline DVD, you can get that at youtube.com/KCVault. That supports me in my pockets, but backtracked and said no. But Randy Savage, Survivor Series 96.
Who backtracked and said no?
Savage.
Yeah.
Bruce told a story that supposedly Randy Savage backed out of Survivor Series 96 after initially wanting to do it. Can you confirm or do you deny?
This is the first I've heard about it, so neither. Let's go. I don't know. Bruce tends to be very straight up when it comes to this type of thing, so I believe there might have been a conversation. If Bruce said there was, I believe it.
Well, speaking of Bruce anyway, let's go with this one from Ed Dead. I don't know what Ed Dead's trying to start, but he's always got these questions about how everyone comes for you about NWO, but Bruce gets off about DX and all that. And tonight he says, everyone asks Eric why NWO didn't have closure, but no one asks Bruce why DX didn't have closure. Do you feel any sort of unfairness, Eric, in the way that maybe NWO are treated versus DX in the history of pro wrestling dirt sheets?
Not at all. Not at all. And I think there's an easy explanation for why DX is kind of treated differently than NWO, because DX at the end of the day didn't really mean fuck all. It was a bad copy, although a successful one, but it was just it wasn't an original idea. It was a derivative of an original idea. And anytime you have a derivative of an original idea, the expectation, either consciously or subconsciously amongst the audience, is much less. So because there just wasn't as much of an expectation for success out of DX, and because quite simply in the annals of professional wrestling history, DX will be a mere footnote, whereas NWE will always be at the pinnacle of the pivotal moments of the sports entertainment industry, and therefore comes under significantly more scrutiny as a result. But I take that, and I'm proud of that, because had the NWO idea been just another derivative idea like the WWE was so famous for, well, I wouldn't be subjected to these types of questions or scrutiny. And the fact that I am suggests to me that I've reached that rarefied air of creators within this industry that will always be subjected to even more scrutiny than anybody else.
Top of the food chain. Just saying.
Very eloquent. Go ahead, George.
No, I mean, I was gonna argue, but I'll say.
I dare you! I dare you argue with me.
I think DX had a very large influence on pro wrestling. I think it's natural in a lot of us, and human nature, to compare the same way we watch, let's say, the newest Batman, and a lot of people will say like, "Oh, that wasn't as good as the other Batman." It's like it's in its nature to just compare. But when you let its individualness just be itself, I think there's a lot of greatness in both the NWO and DX, even separate from each other without any kind of like derivative and things like that. But I just think that with NWO, it felt like a really great movie, and this isn't a knock, as opposed to like the WWE, which I think produced like very soap opera type, where it's like Days of Our Lives has been going on forever, as opposed to the NWO. It just felt like a movie, and it was like I felt like there wasn't much closure because it's like we didn't see the end of that movie.
Well, that's a subjective opinion, and you're certainly entitled to it. And I would agree with you in many respects, but I think the difference is, and you said it right off the bat, well, you said it incorrectly right off the bat. DX didn't have any impact at all on the wrestling industry. NWO already did that. What DX had a major impact on was the WWE, because DX represented the transition from the kiddie era, the teen and preteen era of WWE that existed up until DX. So DX had a significant impact on WWE, but not on the wrestling industry. DX didn't change a damn thing about the wrestling industry. It just took advantage. It just tagged in.
I would also say that the NWO is more like Lost, whereas DX would be more like Law & Order SVU. No one's complaining about Law & Order SVU never ending, because it was never built into day one of it's going to end or they're off to something. It's just like, no, it's cyclical. Whereas the NWO is like, we're going to take over.
And it was, and now I'm gonna quit trying to be funny and quit trying to be a heel. I think the difference is, and Steve actually touched on that a little bit. NWO, the story was who's going to win, WCW or NWO? Well, in the end, nobody won.
Everybody won.
Well, you know what I mean. There was no winner. There was no, hey, NWO wins, raise their hand, or WCW wins, raise their hand. The other one needs to go away. There was no end to the story that had started. The beginning of that story, the premise of the story was anarchy, NWO trying to take over WCW. That was the story. DX didn't have that. DX was comedic. DX was fun. DX made you laugh. Whereas NWO was more, kind of serious anarchy.
I like it.
While we're talking about serious stuff anyway, let's thank John Collins for this super chat. And he's telling us, Eric, that he volunteers at a nonprofit that partners on behalf of people with disabilities in NWFL, maybe a Florida-based organization. He says, who is the first person I should contact in the industry that could help develop a charity event? When you hear that a fan like this wants to get a wrestler involved, who do you think of as that guy who's always willing to help a fan out, or who would definitely be into maybe a charity thing like this? Who comes to mind?
I am not going to say here publicly, because whoever I would say would be probably busy responding to requests, some legit, some not. So what I will say to John Collins is to simply get your information to someone here after 83 weeks, probably Steve Kaufmann, and Steve will get your information to me, and I'll give that some thought. And if I can come up with a good idea, I'll let you know.
Cool. And we just love that you're out there doing that, John Collins.
Absolutely.
Shout out to John.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to Randy Savage. Another super chat, this one from Josh Eternal. He wants to know, which current star is the most like Randy?
None of them.
No.
Not even close. And that's not a knock on anybody. Randy was just that unique of a character. I think anybody that would try to emulate in any way Randy Savage would be frowned upon in this industry. Randy, I used the term rarefied air a few moments ago in kind of a snarky way, but Randy's at a certain level, I think, in the minds of wrestling fans, that if you do anything other than pay respect to Randy Savage, you ain't gonna get over. Gonna go the other way. So I don't think there's anybody like Randy. He was so unique.
I mean, there was one. There was Jay Lethal, right? But that was a parody.
No, that was a moment. That was a parody. That was a shtick.
Mhm.
That wasn't a wrestler trying to be a version of Randy Savage.
Right.
You mentioned that it was really charisma that made Randy stand out. Is there somebody that you can think of who possesses maybe as much or the same kind of charisma, that ability to connect with the fans?
In a different way, but man, it's like no matter how much I talk about how important it is to be able to cut great promos and all that. There's very few people that are today cutting really, really great promos. I'm not going to put him over again because I keep putting him over in every episode. You know who I'm talking about. He's in AEW. And he's doing he's doing such a phenomenal job.
Darby Allin.
Darby Allin, you dipshit. Darby Allin. He cuts a hell of a promo.
He makes incredible short films that translate to this generation, but if we're comparing to just like get in the ring, talking wrestling, I think we all know which 3-lettered wrestler.
Yeah.
Wardlow.
I didn't see it last night, but evidently he cut a good promo, didn't he? Anybody see it?
Yeah. He was very passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm gonna ask my Randy Savage related question now.
Do it.
But that was funny. There was always all this talk about Lanny Poffo, the leaping genius, how like he got paid X amount of money, to not be there. But was there ever any talk about having him wrestle on Nitro or Thunder and WCW at all? Like, we all know the story that it was out of Savage's pocket, but like, was there any thoughts of just bringing him in for anything?
No, but it's not like when I did the deal with Lanny, I said, okay, Randy, it's your money. I'm either going to pay it to you or I'm going to pay it to him. And if you wanted to go to him, cool. But I never want to see him on TV. It wasn't that. It's not like I had anything against Lanny. I just didn't need Lanny. It wasn't necessary. I didn't have a role for him at that time. But having him on the roster in case something would have opened up was not a bad idea, especially if I wasn't paying for it. So it wasn't anything against Lanny. It's just that we didn't need Lanny at that point. We had a pretty fat roster.
Super Calo.
I don't know, man. Jerry Flynn would disagree.
With what?
I'm just saying, like, I don't want to be that guy, but you're right. It was a loaded roster.
Be that guy. Dude, you can't do that. You can't open up with a smart ass comment like that and just throw it out there and then pull it back like a bitch. If you're going to throw a punch,
roll up the sleeves.
Don't throw half a punch.
Because you said, we didn't need him, but there were a lot of people in WCW that got the impression that we're not needed. Jerry Flynn, like Super Calo, like there were just so many guys that, like, I'm sure at some point. So why did I need one more? Why not? I remember I asked you a couple weeks ago. I was like, at some point, should AEW stop signing guys because there's just too many guys? You said no. Whoever wants to come on, bring them on. But now all of a sudden there was no room for the brother of one of the top main eventers of WCW.
That didn't fit in the story. Yeah, it didn't matter. And no, hey, it's different for AEW. AEW they don't have to make any money.
Right.
This is a vanity project. Tony doesn't have to answer to anybody.
That's true.
He can lose as much money as he wants or make as much money as he wants. He wasn't in the same position I was in. And I know the narrative is, we had a lot of guys like Jerry Lynn that probably didn't get used as much as possibly he could have been or should have been. But guess what? Jerry Lynn was a great performer in the ring, but very much on the small side and with interview skills that didn't really impress a lot of people at the time.
Small correction, Jerry Flynn.
Jerry Flynn. I'm sorry. I said Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn was a big, tall karate guy.
Yeah.
Two different things. No, but I like Jerry Flynn. Jerry Flynn's a really smart guy, very talented guy. I had a great conversation with Jerry last time I was stopped by AEW for a minute. But at that time, his promo skills weren't really there. He was a great worker in the ring, but how many great workers in the ring? What's the best Jerry Flynn promo you ever heard?
Did he even cut a promo in WCW?
No, yeah, he did. But what was the best one? What's the one? Which one out of all of them that he cut? Which one did you like the best?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Next question.
Boom. Here is a great one to go into. Let's talk about that Tony Khan vanity project. Alex Ramirez, who's joined us live on Facebook. Thank you, Alex. Says, hey, Eric, Did you think it was a good idea for Tony Khan to put the Ring of Honor Women's Championship on Dynamite as the main event with zero buildup, knowing that he already has a packed roster and giving these women more time on TV than the actual AEW Women's Championship? I think that gives you all the info you need to know there, Eric. Those ladies were the main event on Dynamite this week for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship, Deonna Purrazzo and Mercedes Martinez. I'm sure you didn't catch it, but that is certainly a decision worth chatting about.
You know, without having watched the show and being familiar with the direction of the show, because I'm not, I drop in on it every once in a while. If I hear about something that sounds really interesting to me, I'll drop in. Or if Mrs. B's out of town and I actually have control of the television, then I'll watch a little bit more of it. But I don't really watch the show, so I'm not going to comment on things that I don't watch. It's not really fair.
Well, phrased differently, what are your thoughts of another? I mean, even though it's in the AEW universe, Ring of Honor is having the non-AEW women's title featured so prominently on their flagship show.
All right, I mean that's a philosophy, so I guess I can respond to that one. Philosophically, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Strategically, it makes no sense to me at all. Nobody knows who Ring of Honor is. Nobody cares. Your small, hardcore internet wrestling audience does. But you're talking about a fraction of 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 the national viewing audience. Why would you spend time on that? You're cluttering things up. You're not advancing stories where you're wasting valuable beachfront property, selling snow cones out of the back of a pickup truck. Why would you do that?
Right, and it doesn't do any service to, Mercedes and Deonna, who are great talents. It doesn't do them any good to be in that spot and then have the news come out today that the ratings are the lowest they've been in a year.
And that's not their fault. I know what the ratings were. I saw them. They're horrible. But, in fairness, look, and this is so funny how people in the dirt sheet wrestling community, otherwise known as the internet wrestling community, almost one and the same. Everybody's so focused on ratings. This shit's so predictable. This time of year, the NBA is going to take down WWE because they're competing for 18 to 49-year-old males and even 18 to 54, primarily. So NWO is going to take a hit. NWO should be. WWE is going to take a hit, and AEW is going to take a hit. It just is what it is. Guess what? You know when their next hit's going to come? Around the middle of June. You know why? Because nobody's in the house watching fucking television in the summertime. It's called hut levels. Households using televisions. Nobody's in the house watching television on a Wednesday night in the summertime when it's light till 10:30 at night in some parts of the country, like it is here. People are out doing shit. They're cooking outside. They're playing softball. They're getting together with friends. They're doing all the things they couldn't do all winter long when the weather was horse shit and everybody was locked down for COVID. So nobody's going to be home watching TV. So the ratings will take another hit. And then guess when they're going to start taking another hit? They're going to start taking another hit during preseason football and during the NFL season. And the cycle goes on and on and on and always has for every year. So when a show takes a hit like AEW did, here I am defending AEW, and none of you dirtbag social media AEW punks will acknowledge this, but I'm putting it over. It doesn't matter what the rating was last night. Expect them to get their ass kicked. Expect it. And it's certainly not the fault of the women on the show or anybody else on the show. It is what it is. Now, could the show be doing better? I think it certainly could if it was booked differently and it wasn't booked as a dream match world or universe, and there were better, more coherent stories that resonated with audience beyond the dirt sheet wrestling audience. You can have 100% of the dirt sheet audience and you'll never be able to compete with WWE. You've got to have the broader audience, and you can call them, passive wrestling fans or casual wrestling fans. You can call them whatever you want. But if you're relying on the dirt sheet wrestling community to sustain your product on national television and prime time on beachfront property, in the long run, it's not going to work. That's my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong. I I'll
But
be
with-
really thrilled if I'm wrong.
But with that
I
said,
don't think I am.
with that said, like, it just came out today that AEW and that whatever that show they're doing with New Japan sold out in like 45 minutes. So like, how do
Yep.
you determine like, okay, well, we're proud because of that, but then our ratings suck?
I think that AEW's done a phenomenal job with their live events, especially in Chicago. You notice they keep going back to the same two big markets. They're going back to New York here soon, I see. That'll be an interesting test. Look, you're going to get, just like when AEW launched on television to 1.4 million viewers, everybody wants to sample the product. So you get a big surge. Same reason that 3.5 or 3.9 million people showed up to SmackDown's premiere episode, because everybody wants to tune in and see what it's all about. A lot of promotion, a lot of hype, a lot of buzz on the internet. Dirt sheets are on fire. There's all kinds of crazy shit going on. So people will check it out. And I think right now, AEW, to a certain degree, is enjoying some of that benefit. In addition to, and more importantly, they've done a good job developing loyalty within that hardcore, although smaller percentage of the overall national viewing audience. Those that are there. And they want to come out and see that live event. And they're doing a phenomenal job. And AEW should be applauded for their success in doing that. But it's not the same thing as a great television show. You eventually, if you don't have that, even though the television show is holding water, it's treading water. There's no question about that. It's got 1 million viewers. In some discussions, people will say that's absolutely fantastic because in this world of digital streaming, blah, 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 it's hard to have 1 million viewers. And that's not untrue. It's a true statement. But in terms of building and getting to the point where you're competitive with WWE, it's not going to happen with 1 million viewers. You can go. Here's another factor. How often does AEW go on the road? How many house shows?
Once a week for their TV tapings.
Yeah, and their TV tapings are generally in smaller markets, right?
Right.
5,000-6,000 people arenas.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So when they do have a big show, and because they don't run a lot of big shows every week like WWE does, they haven't been running big shows and big arenas like WWE does every week for the last 25 or 30 years. You're going to have a lot more people are going to come out and check you out because they haven't seen your stuff before. It's one of the things that amazes me about WWE is how they can get anybody to come out and pay for a live event ticket, because you've seen it so many times and there's nothing really different. It's kind of like the same thing over and over and over again. People are a little bit different sometimes, but people keep coming back because it's a fun experience. But it's got to be harder and harder and harder for them every year because it's just not new anymore. It's not a thing to do anymore. It's not an event anymore when it comes to town like it used to be. So with AEW, they have that advantage. It's a new thing. AEW coming to your town is a new thing. Just about anywhere you go, with the exception of Chicago and Las Vegas. And in those markets, because they've been able to draw big crowds, they're fun shows, and they're likely to get people to come back. But that doesn't necessarily mean they have a good television show.
All right. I think we have 3 super chats before we're with the patrons. Christy, you may or may not be muted.
Yes.
My dog was drinking water before.
No worries. Mick Mac, hope Eric is okay this week. He used to be controversial, threw out a Jericho bait on the line, but you didn't bite. Really disappointed. You gave us donuts. Please lift your game. 98 Eric would be shocked. Was there something between you and
that was
Jericho?
last week. No. Last week, Mick Mac lobbed a question about Jericho back at us, and if I remember correctly, Eric was pretty diplomatic in that. But I think he's okay, Mick.
Mick is only happy when he's stirring shit, right? And I'll be honest with you, Mick, I love you. You're a cool dude. Hopefully I'll get back to Australia and have a beer with you again someday. but I generally ignore your shit disturbing attempts. So you can lob this stuff out there all you want, and if I can see that all you're really trying to do is stir shit, chances are I'll ignore you, or at the very least give you a really softball response. So unless it's funny. Now, if it's funny, if there's humor in it, I'll tag in. But if it's just stirring shit to stir shit, anybody can do that, and I generally don't participate.
One more from
do
Mick
try.
Mick. And I believe it's just a movie suggestion. Difference between tank beer and keg beer. I think the question to you is, what's the difference between tank beer and keg beer? Also, if you get time, watch The Castle, The Dish, and Ned Kelly. They're awesome Australian movies.
All right, I'll check that out. I have no idea what the difference is between tank beer and keg beer. Maybe tank beer is just a bigger keg that you hang on a wall.
That sounds right.
I'll go with that. I have no idea.
Love that. All right, one more super chat from our 83-week subscribers, and then we are going to get to our ad-free show's private after party, which tonight is going to be Eddie Prather's birthday party. So let's do it. Michael Scoggins asked, did you find it interesting that WCW was monitored so heavily by standards and practices back in the day, but now TV shows seem even worse with the content that they show? Do you agree that TV gets away with more these days than you guys did back in the 90s?
I think in scripted programming, definitely. Network, without question on network. Cable, I guess I don't know. I don't watch enough of, I don't watch a lot of cable anymore. So I don't really know. But I think with time, I think the boundaries have continued to get wider and wider and wider and wider, and to the point now where you can't really see boundaries anymore. But that's been true since the 60s, right? I mean, you guys are all too young to remember this, but I remember watching the Dick Van Dyke Show with Mary Tyler Moore. And whenever they were, getting ready to go to bed, Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke slept in separate beds because you couldn't show two husband and wife getting into bed together on primetime television. My God, you can never do that. Well, look where we are today. You can have a husband and a wife and a guest.
And that's the premise of the show.
Yeah. So, things have changed.
Well, thanks for that little insight into what you're watching there, EB. And thank you so much for the super chat, Michael. Thank you all for hanging out with us on the 83 Weeks channel. We are doing our little ad-free shows after party right now. This is where things get really wild. You can sign up at adfreeshows.com if you'd like to become a top guy. And thank you so much. We do this every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. However, Eric will not be with us next week, so we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Because I'm getting a colonoscopy. Yay! I can't wait.
Didn't know if you wanted to sell that one or not, but so everybody,
I'll be selling it next time. That's for sure. I'll be doing this show standing up, I'm afraid.
Make sure we get a play-by-play in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Love it. Stay tuned, guys.
Oof. That'll be something that JR could call. Oh no, there might be heat.
My God. My God.
What are they pulling out of there? Oh, God.
Is that Ruth Chris? That's her steak.
All right, I'm going to get some water. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.